I would like to acknowledge for everyone on stage the traditional custodians of the land and water in which we are meeting today, and pay respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging, which is an outstanding phrase. I would also like to pay respects to Aboriginals and Torres Strait Island men and women who have contributed to the defense of Australia in times of peace and war. I'm glad some of you came back. So let's have some fun. I am Chief Petty Officer First Class David Steeves. I'm the Command Chief of the Royal Canadian Navy. They say the camera adds 10 pounds. I would like to note there are 4 cameras in the back. I've had the absolute pleasure of being the Command Chief of the Royal Canadian Navy for 3 years, and sadly that term will come to an end in 3 weeks from today when I turn over to my replacement, Tom Lizotte, reluctantly. So I just want to say that we've been talking about resilience and a lot of things today. Oh, by the way, I'm the moderator for what's going to happen in a few minutes, but they gave me a mic, so I'm going to bloody well talk. I suffer from depression, anxiety, substance abuse issues, and other events that cause me to suffer sometimes, but it's okay. If you're hurting, reach out, please get help. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we just bury ourselves in a hole and don't do the work. We have to create resilience, we have to move forward, and we have to serve these great nations that we signed up to serve. So thank you very much for that. You'll hear it a lot for all the ordinary leading POs in the room. Oh, you're the leaders of tomorrow. Bullshit. You're the leaders of today, who will also be the leaders of tomorrow. And don't you forget that. Us dinosaurs are up here, our days are numbered. I was referring to them, the dinosaurs. And it's over to you, so thank you very much. What you've heard this morning when Speedy stood up, we are all completely different. We are all exactly the same. And it's both comforting and extremely frightening. But we can get through this together, and we can have the shared knowledge to make all of our organizations that much better. We have a whole bunch of policies in Canada to fix all the shortcomings, but it comes down to one thing. Respect the dignity of all people. We have all signed up. We have the identity. We all wanted to serve our nation and serve it proudly. Treat everybody with respect. Let them come to work, have a voice, be heard, be safe, and be valued, and a lot of the issues we have today will go away. My mantra is care. It's simple. Clarity. Tell people why we're doing it. Doesn't mean they're going to like it, but they're going to understand why we're doing it, where we're going, and what we're going to do. Adaptability breeds resilience. Be adaptable. In this organization, the only constant is change, and that's okay, because we're representing our countries. Respect, full stop. Respect the dignity of all people. And enjoyment. I think you can see that as an immature 51.62-year-old individual, I have fun just sitting with my mates, whatever it is, and engaging with the wonderful young sailors. So thank you very much for that. Without further ado, we'll get to the other guys. From Singapore, the Master Chief Petty Officer is Command Chief Ryan Yu. He's over there. He'll be speaking. From New Zealand, the Warrant Officer of the Royal New Zealand Navy, Warrant Officer Lance Graham. From Malaysia, the Warrant Officer of the Royal Malaysian Navy, Fazli. Why do we call you Fazli? That's his name. His first name is Mohamad. He said there's too many Mohammeds, so it's Fazli. Didn't think I knew, did you? And last but not least, from the UK, we got Warrant Officer Steedman, and a few words off the mark here from the Singapore Master Chief of the Navy, Richard Goh.
Good afternoon and welcome back. Yeah, I would like to just say a few words before I hand over to Ryan to take you through the presentation that we have. Right. First, I want to acknowledge Deb. Where's Deb? Probably step out for a while. I think I thank her for inviting us, and I think it is a event that we will all remember for a long, long time. We also appreciate the hospitality that was accorded to us. I think it was fantastic, and thank you for the event. Right. So I was sitting there this morning and listening to the various command warrant officer on the various topics. One thing came out very stark for me, and it's all about our people. right? And I think we are here to share ideas on how we can look after our people better engage them, right? And that's also why there's no surprise that Command Warrant Officer Colin stole the thunder at the Q&A, right? I think it will be the same thing, but this time probably from a different country, right? So without going any deeper, I will just let Ryan take us through one of our solutions to address some of this problem that we all hear this morning, right, Ryan?
Thank you, Master Chief Navy, Military Expert 6, Richard Goh. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back, really. Like what Command Master Chief Royal Canadian Navy has said, it's really hard to get everyone back, especially after lunch. And I'm given the arduous task of entertaining you guys for the next 10 minutes and while you guys are fighting the sea monster over heavy lunch. But nonetheless, I'll do my best. I'll do my best. And hopefully this will be interesting for you. As I've mentioned, I'm Military Expert 4, Ryan, from the Republic of the Singapore Navy. I'm currently holding the appointment of Master Chief 3rd Flotilla. I know many are not aware of the rank structure of the Republic of Singapore Navy, but I'll go on to speak in detail in a few moments. Okay, so today I'll be covering the topic of the Warrior Expert and Leaders Framework, which the Singapore Navy adopted. It is a framework designed for our people, and I'll explain in a few moments. Okay, a little something about myself. Right? I joined the Navy in 1998, and then this has a large part to do with my wife, right? Why I joined the Navy. Okay, so after completing my education, I've discussed with my then girlfriend what to do. What do I want out of my life, and how can we continue, bring my wife or my girlfriend then into a more steady lifehood. And she mentioned, hey, go and join something that is more sustainable and that gives a better security. So I think of joining the Singapore Armed Forces. But there are 3 services then. I don't like to go to the jungle because it's too hot, a lot of mosquitoes, right? And I'm too dumb to fly an airplane. And I look at the Navy, I think, wow, all whites. And I'll look pretty smart in them. And henceforth, I decided to join the Navy in 1998. And I began my naval career as a junior operator on board the patrol vessels, where I gained my foundations, where I gained my knowledge, where I gained my seaman skill sets, which is required for every sailor of the Navy. And I spent about 4 years in the patrol vessels, and I began to deepen my expertise on board the larger platforms. That is where I served on board the landing ship tanks, which is primarily in charge of amphibious operations. And after gaining my deep expertise and deep knowledge, system knowledge, I proceeded on to hold 4 leadership appointments on board the patrol vessels, the littoral mission vessels, the frigates, as well as the landing ship tanks. And this is really to hone my leadership skills in HR management, in how to deal with people, in how to address the welfare and morale of the crew of my ship. And now I'm the Master Chief of 3rd Flotilla, in charge of all the LSTs, the civil resource vessels, as well as the men and women under this 3rd Flotilla. And on top of that, I've had my fair share of deployments. I've done one tour in Iraq, being deployed to Iraq to aid in the reconstruction of Iraq during the Arabian Gulf War. And subsequently, I also participated in the Gulf of Aden for counter-piracy ops. And as part of my career progression and, to gain more knowledge, I was then subsequently selected to be part of the project team, which helped to design the littoral mission vessel. So in this project team, I'm basically in charge of the design of the vessel, like designing a home, right? Designing a home. When I have my own home, I decide how my sailors want to live in. I decide the comfort, the kind of machineries, the kind of combat systems that they operate in. And henceforth, it was my proudest moment then, right? To be able to be involved and design the vessel that the future generations of sailors will operate in, right? So I shall not bore you with too much info about myself, but yeah, if you are interested in me, I'm sure many of you will do, right? You can look for me after the session. All right, so coming back to the topic of the Warrior Expert and Leaders Framework, why is there a need for such a framework? And before I go into the framework details, I need to tell you a little bit about the impetus for change. Okay, so in the Singapore Armed Forces, as faced by many services, we have some challenges in recruitment, retention, and so on and so forth. And there is a need to evolve. There is a need to evolve. In order to make the Singapore Armed Forces a capable and dynamic fighting force, we need to change with the times, because as our people are better educated, they are more well-trained and exposed to the media, to outside world, to other professions. There is a pull and push factor, whereby the private sector, whereby remunerations are better, the incentives are better. So there is a competing challenge. And we need to find a way to retain our people, to keep them engaged, to better develop them. And henceforth, there's a requirement to change. There's a requirement to change. And we are really looking at recruitment, really how to develop our people, and to better retain our people and attract them to stay on, because they know their career lives are being looked after, their welfare are being looked after, their moral are being looked after. So back in 1982, the Singapore Armed Forces implemented similar rank insignias across two main schemes, the Enhanced Officer Scheme, as well as the Warrant Officers Enlistee Scheme. So we have the rank structures for this. And in order to further evolve and meet the aspirations of the younger generations, in 2009, the SAF adopted the Military Expert Domain Scheme. Right? The Military Domain Expert Scheme. And through this rank structure, right, I'll just give you a quick overview in comparison to the RIN rank structure. This is where I am now, OF4, okay? So this is to meet aspirations, and this is to make sure that we retain our people. When people are better educated, you know, they aspire more as they climb up the ladder ranks. We need to meet their expectations. So from here onwards, right, Military Expert 1 to Military Expert 3 is equivalent to the OR 8. And from Military Expert 4 onwards is the OF rank in accordance, right? So that gives the impetus of why is there a need to introduce a new scheme. And following on, because of the unique operating environment of our sailors, operators or sailors on board ships need to operate two key functions. One is the combatants, the other is the technicians. But ultimately, they are one single person operating, and we call them the experts. But with the WL, the Warrior Expert Leaders introduced, there is then a challenge, because there is emphasis placed on gaining deep expertise, and there's a common belief that expert is the only trait that resides within the MDES framework. And henceforth, we need to clearly identify what are the roles, what are the responsibilities, and what are accountabilities that the MDES core will have. And really is to define the strong sense of identity and make sure we free up when we have a strong sense of identity, when we know what we are accountable for, we can free up capacity for the other core, for example, like the officer core, to really focus on other things. and I introduce to you the Warrior Expert and Leader Framework, which the Singapore Navy has adopted. So what is the accountables for each entity of the warrior, the expert, and the leader? So for warrior, we understand that every military expert goes through different stages of their career ranks, and they are accountable for different things, but in three broad categories, right? In three broad categories. So for the warrior, our accountabilities are really focusing on core sailor fundamentals, which focuses on fitness, the swimming, weapon skills, like small arms, seamanship, and some of the FFDC or small boat handlings, as well as some aspect of ceremonials. And for the leaders, it doesn't mean that, for the experts, it doesn't mean that when someone particular, an engineer or a technician work on board, right, they just fix the system. They just maintain the system. We need our experts to be really proficient in optimizing every combat system to its full capabilities. And henceforth, they are accountable for combat expertise, right? They have to own the standards. They have to make sure that they excel in the technical expertise when they are performing the expert roles. And lastly, for leaders, in every service, every sailor goes through a leadership portion in their naval career, right? Leadership is important. That's why we want to place emphasis also on leadership. And henceforth, the accountables for our leaders meant that we will need to lead, we will need to train our sailors, and we need to develop our sailors to be future leaders, so that this is in order in a bid to succeed or have a succession plan. And they need to impart the heritage as well as the naval ethos into our sailors' mind. And lastly, not forgetting, we need to enforce regimentation as well as discipline, because in the naval career, everyone goes through the discipline route. Everyone needs to observe certain standards of discipline in order to make a service or a force work and fight together as a unit. And that's a short description of the Warrior Expert and Leader Framework, which is a framework designed for our people. Before I conclude my presentation, I would like to show you a video of who we are in the RSN. Enjoy.
you are entrusted with a vital mission. It is now your duty to sail the ships of the next generation Navy and keep Singapore safe and secure in peacetime as in war. Onwards and upwards.
Thank you very much, Richard and Ryan, for that. It's absolutely outstanding. I'm sure you're going to hear some common themes this afternoon: ethics, ethos, leadership, people. Brick and mortar, steel ships, they're absolutely nothing. The center, the heart, the very life of all of those things is our people, and you're going to hear this again. So thank you very much for that. I'd like to bring up Lance Graham.
Kia ora koutou katoa. I'm conscious of the time. I have some notes. They may not be read. I think there's some points to nail down on. And one of them was to back off Speedy's discussion from this morning, or points, was our problems are the same, they're shared. I'm concerned. I've brought my Sailor of the Year here, Gemma Hokai Mataya, and she's at LMTP, and she's had about 7 job offers so far, so I'm not too sure she's going to be coming home. But the problem's the same, and we have exactly the same thing for the same reasons. I don't know that the solutions are the same, but I think this is an environment to start getting those out and start understanding each other and where we sit with that. And even to the recruiting piece that was brought up, that's the same here. And when you have a room of 2 and 1 stars that are concerned about recruiting because it's important, because we realise we're missing the right people that we need to be in with us in the Navy or the forces, that shows how big it is, I guess. Conscious of the time, just wanting to share a couple of points is we've realised that we have stretched ourselves quite thin in the New Zealand Navy. We're not big, and you know we have 9 platforms, 6 classes, 2,300 and some change folks. So we're not big, and we've stretched ourselves with OPROTECs and everything else. In order to regenerate, we're looking to focus on our people first, and have created a 4-year plan. And the 4-year plans are good in. And there's a whole bunch of lines of effort within that, within that point too, within that plan, we will have to turn some things off and realise that we can't do everything, it's impossible. So to give our people the time to develop, the time to get the qualifications they need, we have to do that. In amongst that though, we're planning another world trip, and I don't know if sailors were out there in 1993, but we did that in 1993, hung right at New Zealand, spun around, and 7 months, 19 days later came back. So that's sort of what we're heading for. It's our ambition, and we look forward to stopping in with partners on the way, during which we'd like to do a CDF 151 and whatever other operations we can, but more importantly, integrate with folks here. Now, I say that up front because what happens is when we talk to our sailors, that's cool, but it always comes back to conditions of service, retention, allowances, and pay. And that's why I didn't want to go on too long, because it's the common theme that we've heard for the morning, and I really appreciate the perspectives and points of view that were put across in terms of that. I think there's a piece of this where it does us justice to give you time to ask questions to see potentially how we do things. I'll leave you with a proverb or whakatauki that we have, maybe two, and it is, he aha te mea nui o te au. That is, what is the most important thing in the world? And the answer is always, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It is the people, the people, the people, and it always will be the people. We are nothing without that. And I totally get Dave's point of view. So we are the old crusties, and it's our job to develop the NCOs, and I love that. And I actually love looking at our killix and around that area and seeing some of the innovative ideas, passion, spirit that I see there, and trying to create the pathways for them to feel empowered and able to execute their ideas, because it's important. I'll leave you with one more whakatauki, proverb, and that is, e waka e ka noa. We're all in this together. Thank you.
People. So we had the pleasure of having two of the New Zealand ships up in Canada for these coasts, getting through refits and whatnot. We only took 3 of your people, so that's all right, that's not bad. But on a high note, the caliber of rugby in the area went up tenfold. The Canadians weren't happy, but except the ones that were on your guys' team.
We brought 4 viewers back too. So.
Yeah. Dang it, that's not fair. Thank you very much, much appreciated. All right, Fazli, you ready, brother? He's not ready, talk amongst yourselves. No, he's good.
Thank you, Steve. First of all, I would like to impress my gratitude to my colleagues on all my counterparts here, which has been a very good time spending here in Sydney. This is my first time attending this such wonderful international event as a WON currently. So this is my first year as a WON, and it's going to be a great experience for me to experience with all you guys. So I'm trying to all my best to engaging with everybody here. So I'm having a wonderful, great time. So I would like to address my thanks again and gratitude to all of you. So without further ado, I'm not here today not to give a presentation or something like that, but I love to share. Since I was new as a WON, so I would like to share what I've been experienced since I was appointed as a WON, which is in my perspective, as a Warrant Officer of the Navy, it is my duty to ensure that all aspects of the welfare and any other aspect of the sailor is my responsibility. So that I want to share with you guys, and also I would like to learn from my counterparts here on how do we deal and how we can improve to give a betterment for our sailors as well. So I have a discussion with Deb yesterday, so we have good conversation. Deb and Admiral Noonan has visited to Malaysia last January. So I would like to thank Deb for her sharing what she's doing here in Royal Australian Navy, which I has adapted, and I'm sharing with all the sailors in Malaysia. So there's not much different from what we're doing and from what Royal Australian Navy is doing as a Warrant Officer of the Navy, which is concluding in 3 major aspects, which is welfare, the discipline, and also the career of our sailors. As we know that in this era of cutting-edge technology, we have a super equipment that we can use to, but it is nothing without a good sailors, which is us. So that's why it is important on focusing on developing a good sailors to become a great Navy for our nations. As the global issues has emerging everywhere, so it is important for us to keep our awareness in very high situation. So I was hoping that this kind of calibration, this kind of event that gathering us together, that we can reconnect after 2 years of pandemic has emerged. So that after this kind of connection that we have, so it is different to have a conversation between in virtual reality and also in video conference as well, some things like that. But when we engaging, the connection is really different. So what are we planning for future is that I really hope that we can have a much more collaboration like this, so that we can share and we can together improve to our sailors as well. I think that's all, Steve, I would like to say. So get back to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good day.
So we didn't collaborate or discuss any things we're going to talk about here today, but it's all the same thing. So I hope that warms your hearts a little bit, that know at the highest levels we're looking out for our people the best we possibly can. But like it was mentioned this morning, keep pushing us. Keep challenging us, hopefully politely. But just get her done, and let's keep making all of our forces a lot better place. Now, the one, the only. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Carl Speedy Steedman.
Cheers, mate. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You heard me talk this morning. It's great to walk up on stage and find out the clock's already run down. Thank you. So I will keep my hour's presentation very, very short. Debs and the team, it's been a pretty amazing week for a number of reasons. The main one for me, I'm an Englishman, and only 2 people have mentioned the standard of the English cricket team this week, so I am very, very happy with that. But the hospitality has been amazing, so thanks a lot. I said some stuff this morning, and it's a common theme. The currency from the front row and everybody in the room is the same. Our currency is common, and our currency is people. And that's pretty much the same, whichever Navy you look at around the world. And so what I said this morning, based up on what you were grilling your command warrants about, was genuine, the truth. And it's been mirrored up here by all my colleagues up here. And we haven't jumped into any catching up over the last couple of days. It is just where we are around the world. And if you look at the Royal Navy, if you jump back 2 years when I come into this job, the Royal Navy, just before our Prime Minister took us into lockdown, we had just under 6,000 people deployed around the world. Be it Royal Marines, be it submarines, ships, squadrons, etc. We were out there, we were getting amongst our day-to-day business. Then we jumped into lockdown, but we didn't stop. And the navies around the world didn't stop, and we continued. Our fourth generation needed to continue. Our dockyards remained open. Our commando units had to think of a different way of keeping their readiness up. We spoke about recruits this morning. Last year, the Royal Navy hit its recruitment figures for the first time in 9 years. What does that say about the people that are coming through the doors? What does that say about the people that are joining the Royal Marines, joining the Navy as sailors and coming into Dartmouth as our officers? They've got off their backsides during a pandemic, stopped playing Xbox, and they've come and joined. So again, where we link into each other, I think, is quite key. And you look at what we've done there on the back of an integrated review. Sorry to talk a little bit of politics. So every 5 years in the UK, we have a spending. So we did an integrated review. So again, the Navy had to get its pitch as the government was thinking about how the hell we share the money around its various departments. And at the time, there's no war in Ukraine. We had to fight for our pennies, etc. We did. We then had a Prime Minister that gave us a no-fail mission, which was to get our carrier task group out the door, what we did last year, and get it around the world. And we briefly spoke about that this morning. But again, you look at the people that we have to force generate. Doesn't matter whether you work on an MCM, a frigate, a destroyer, part of a Royal Marine boarding team. We had to put a load of people into isolation. We had to put people into quarantine. I had ships that were forward deployed around the world that went alongside in some areas for 6-week maintenance periods where they couldn't step off the ship. So again, there's a massive common theme about what we've done in the last 18 months to 2 years as a globe. And then what we've done is we've transformed the Navy. We've won the integrated review. We've got some more money. We're an organisation that's going from being £7.2 billion now by when we get to 2030. We'll be a £9.4 billion organisation. We're growing in our tonnage from 2015 to the end of the decade by 50%. We've got a shipbuilding program that's going. Our Marines are transforming into the commando force. Our submarine building program is going through the roof. So we've got lots going on. But in the people space, we've got to continue to recruit. We've got to continue to make sure our people join well, live well, serve well, and eventually leave well. And the Royal Marines are particularly good at this because it's once a Marine, always a Marine. And we're just trying to get our sailors into that space, once Navy, always Navy. And I think most people in the room can relate to that sort of stuff as we get to the end of our journeys. Time does come to an end. The professor spoke this morning. He spoke a lot about change. And I like a good phrase, as Lance knows. You can't spell challenge without change. And when you look around in the various departments and the organizations of your navies where you work, that to me is always something we've got to keep on the front foot. Because the globe is a different place to what it was in 2019. We now think differently, we now do differently, we need to act differently. And I think that will involve a hell of a lot of challenge up and down our organizations. So I meant it this morning when I told the people beyond the front row, just keep challenging your organizations. Just keep challenging up to the warrant officer level and beyond, because that is important. All of the navies around the world now, if we're going to be honest, have probably got about 4 generations of people working in them. Somebody alluded to us being the crusty ones. I'm trying to work out whether I'm the youngest person on the stage or not, but it doesn't matter. We're a different generation. I joined the Royal Navy in May 1991. The internet had not been invented. You look at the people that are joining our navies now, it is a different world. And there's so much that we can learn off each other, from the slightly older ones, stage folk, to the young, impressive people at the back. Okay, so you've got to keep challenges and all that. I will stop there because I am very, very keen and conscious to get some of you lot firing questions at us. And my final bit is don't hold back. Just come weapons free at us. Ask us any other questions you want. I'll leave you to it. Ponder, fire. Cheers, buddy.
So we'll get into the questions, but one thing else I want to say. When I was a master sailor in between leading sailor and P2, I thought I was the bee's knees. I thought it was absolutely the greatest. But then I see the young sailors today, just like the ones in the room that I've talked to. I was nothing, absolutely nothing. I honestly believed that each and every one of you was working about 2 ranks above what you hold on your shoulders or your arms, and you should be very proud of that. So the first question is always the toughest, and we've already got a Canadian with their hand up, so I'm just going to skip over to Elena.
Thanks, Dave. So, hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much. My name is Chief Petty Officer First Class Elena Mondelli, and I'm the person who's going to be replacing Tom when he replaces Dave. So, my question is more going to be along the lines of maybe a difficult space, or as I heard yesterday from our Royal Australian Navy counterparts, a courageous space. And I'm going to give a little bit of preamble and air some of Canada's dirty laundry. So I joined in November 1991, and a couple of years after I joined, we were given this sensitization training in how to treat people better. And that was just about a forenoon of conversations and a couple of videos which were really poorly done. Checking the box to say, okay, now you know how to treat people better, but we didn't. Fast forward a little bit to around 2013, 2014, and then we had one of our justices go around Canada and talk to different people in the Canadian Armed Forces, and they found out that we had a very inappropriate and sexualized culture that had to be corrected within the Canadian Armed Forces because it was causing people harm. To the point where the Chief of Defense Staff at the time said, this is going to be a no-fail mission, so we're going to call it an operation, and it was named Operation Honor. Well, last year, that Chief of Defense Staff, it was made very public, but he was finally brought to a situation where he had to be held accountable for his own inappropriate behavior while he was Chief of Defense Staff and during Operation Honor. During Operation Honor, there was a certain group, and we'll say it was mostly the middle management, so mostly the sailors, the junior sailors, that were being held accountable, but the officers and the senior NCOs were not. And that's really come to a head for us where in the last year and a half, we've now had to create a new command within the Canadian Armed Forces as a whole to help shift the direction of where our culture is going. So my question is, and it's going to be a long go, and it's going to take a while, and we're starting to make small changes. So my question to the panel is, because our people are our most important folks, our people, our human system to run all of the other systems within our Navy, they are the most important. So knowing that we didn't do it right, and we're starting to do it right, or we think we are, hopefully, what are your navies doing to ensure that your most important asset are being treated with respect, equity, and dignity by each other? Thank you.
Can I make a start? Thanks for your question. You're not alone either. Our op respect sort of followed in line with your op honour, albeit a couple of years later. We did a review in 2019 with our Ministry of Defence. They found 44 recommendations for us to enact because it hadn't worked, it hadn't spread as far as it should, and the behaviours were still there. So I'm now part of that, championing that revitalisation of it, and actually to answer it simply, though it's complex and there's a lot to it, we've actually driven the ownership down the units to a low level. So, because what happened before for us, it was a thing driven from command, right? So people just got another order to do, and it wasn't imbued. Now within the units, they're making up their own, they're creating their own standards, they're creating their limiting lines of good behaviour and not so good behaviour. So they're creating these things and holding each other to account. So that program's underway, but as you know, and we introduced some civilian folks to help us with expertise in sexual assault. And talking to them, their thoughts are, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. To change culture takes a long time, and it's not an overnight thing. As a part of that too, we've created a Maritime Cultural Guardianship Board, which we call Kaitiaki, which is Māori for Guardians. And within that board, which started based on an op respect incident of someone who had left the Navy and the event had happened whilst in, and we brought her in, heard the story, Chief of Navy heard the story, created an environment for her to share and partake in making change in our organisation. She's still linked to that, so we still have her in that. And these I guess, initiatives, even the Cultural Guardian Board, we've just at the first step, so that's going to be driving it down so ownership is at a lower level and owned within that piece. But it is a journey and one that we're on, and I'll stop very soon so other guys never go. But I'm shocked sometimes at how some people's attitudes are, and from my experience, it is within some specific areas which I won't highlight here, but which we're working on. Thanks for your question.
Just to follow up, I have no doubt that everyone in the front row could probably answer your question very similar to what Lance done there. And changing a culture is not a 10-minute situation. It takes time. I go back to my 4 generations of people. We, like Lance there, we've had a couple of reports. We are trying to get into it. I think we can say that nobody's perfect. But as you look at the cultural, you look at the elements of the young, amazing people that are joining the navies around the world, and our focus on the Royal Navy. They are coming in from their universities, their colleges, with a young person's appreciation of the world. And so some elements get taught bad behaviours during training. And then the big push that we've got, and there's a Royal Marine RSM in the audience here, is to allow some of the young people, both the leading hands, corporals, to be able to call it out. Because they've got a Mark I set of eyeballs the same as us. And the walk-on-by culture needs to stop. Because as soon as anybody sees something that is inappropriate at whatever level, they've got to be able to call it out. That's how you'll change a culture slightly quicker. And I could go on for the next 10 minutes about this because I'm fundamentally passionate about it. But we've got it. We've got women at sea and submarines 10 years now. We are still bashing down that barrier and doors. And it is frustrating as hell. But we will get there, and the culture will change. But just because you get to one stop, better never stops. You just got to continue getting better and better. But yeah, it's the culture, and it's just calling it out.
Yep. So I cannot disagree that culture is important. Yep. So, but for us, we thought the way to solve people issue is to let the people solve the issue themselves. Let them take ownership, right? And not people like us trying to solve the issue of the guy on the ground, right? I mean, I have this belief that if a sailor chooses to leave the service, right, it is not likely the Master Chief or the warrant officer that he don't like. It is all, in all likelihood, is his immediate supervisor, whether is it a leading seaman and things like that, right? So that's why we advocate that everyone take ownership. And if you notice from Ryan sharing earlier, right, one of the things that we advocate of a leader is role modeling. And we expect every sailor to be a role model. And hopefully, being a role model, we will be able to eradicate some of this toxic culture.
Sorry, I thought Deb was going to talk there. I agree with everything you said. It's absolutely true. Bystander intervention. I push it down and I preach it all the time because bystander intervention is extremely difficult. If you see us up here and we say something wrong, you're an able seaman, or you're going to come up and talk to us, maybe not. But just know that in Canada, and I'm sure the rest of the countries, we have your back. Do not be afraid to correct those individuals that are doing wrong. And people say, well, I don't want to blame them. Well, you know what? That person puts you in a position that you should not have to be in. Bystander intervention is required to correct the short things and the bad things before they become horrible things. So thank you very much. Questions over here, please?
Yeah, g'day team. Warrant Officer Steve Cheeseman, Subo for Surface Force. We've talked about people being our key, and for each of the services we say we've got the same issues. Can you provide us with one of your key retention initiatives from each of those services? Thanks.
I'll go first. I could probably give you about 97, everything from improving infrastructure, improving the lived experience, but everybody's lived experience is different. Waking up in the morning, I go back to my Royal Marine friend in the front there. We've still got people in our service that are waking up and having cold showers. So they join to serve the nation, be part of our fabric of the nation, and we're not giving them hot water in the morning. That's a continuing battle we've got, and it's part of that lived experience. We've then got to, as I alluded to talking earlier, join well, live well, serve well. It's all about, as we come out of the pandemic, being to get back on runs ashore, to get our people out and about, doing that defence engagement, which they enjoy, build up the stories of being out on operations and out on exercise, because that, again, will improve the retention side of it. And then we've also got to help them as and when they decide that they want to leave, because it's a personal choice and an option. And then I personally don't have no issues if people want to leave the Royal Navy, but as long as they're doing it for the right reasons, rather than waking up on a Tuesday and having bad breakfast. That's not a reason to leave the service. It's got to be done for the right reasons. And then we have a golden ticket project where you can still come back in 5-6 years later just by putting a telephone number on your fridge door, and we'll have you back if it's still right to do so. Because sometimes when you leave the service, the grass on the other side is not as green. So it's a full-on challenge. There's the A to Z of stuff, but the lived experience, what we tell our people when they come in through the careers office, and what they get to when they get in on the field in operations, in a submarine, in a ship, etc., at times is maybe not what we're preaching.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear about the question. Is it about what we do in order to maintain the personnel to stay in the service? Is it correct?
Yes, so some of the things we're looking at is, and again, it's the whole of Navy focus is retention and some of those initiatives, whether it be medical, dental, whatever the case may be. What are some of your Navy's key retention initiatives?
Okay, thank you for the question. So I will tell you what we in Malaysia do to keep our sailors' retention in the service as well. So much of us, not much different that we do, but I would like to address on how do we train the sailors in order to keep their interest in the service. So besides of the benefits and all these perks that we are offering them. So one thing that is really important is to keep just to make sure that they understand why the reason they joined the Navy. First and foremost, we want to serve the nation, of course. But mostly the challenge is how to attract this young generation, how to be tough and how to understand what is the main purpose to join the Navy. It is not only you want to find something that you want to do in life, but you have to have that sense of feeling of loving your country. I think that is really important to adapt in, to make sure that our sailors understand what is we doing. Thank you.
I'll be real quick, and can jump on the RN, I think RAN piece too. There's a lot of things we're doing together. We have about 98 initiatives that we've got going on, so I won't go through all those, but I sort of think as I've been around the bazaars, the key that, to me is that comms link or closing the loop on it, because if there's anything I'm feeling, it's the sense of disempowerment at a certain level within our ranks, and I think, and once they've been empowered or given the platform to communicate, have two-way communication, it's actually a lot better. And I was with a bunch of leading hands about 2 weeks ago, and the only thing to me was, hey, we don't care if it's bad news, just tell us the news, because it seems like when you don't do that, it seems like you're holding something back. So that was the whole key. So what we're doing next week with the Chief of Navy and Maritime Component Commander is we'll be going to talk to a whole bunch of sailors just in a bunch of town halls just to give that message. And it wasn't until I started talking to them and saying, well, yeah, but we've done, there's all these things here. They say, yeah, we've never heard of that. And it's out there, so there's another piece with this, which is the network or how you communicate, because I think that's another area that that's worthwhile of investigation. The leading hands I talk to say, man, we just need a news feed. Now, our technology doesn't do that in the clunky computer system, but we do have an app that we're upgrading to allow that to happen. So I think there's some innovation might be the answer, and a bit of honesty to develop trust, right? Thanks.
Yep. So for us, it's always the grass is greener on the other side, right? So people see that it's always better and things like that. Something that they don't do, but they always think that it's better prospecting. But the truth for us is really about the higher aspiration of the people this day, right? People are well educated. They have a lot more choices. So beside the Navy, there are many, many other things that they can do. So this is one of the challenges that our Navy is constantly looking at to address. So I mean, it's largely about human resource. How can we meet the aspiration of the individual? Whether is it providing educational academy upgrade, right? And letting them go to the ship that they want to, letting operate sexy equipment and stuff like that.
Thank you, gentlemen. So I'm actually going to steal 10 minutes from your break, if you don't mind, if and hopefully when there are more questions to come in. So please keep firing them. And I can't see if there are any.
So it's Lean Sim Russell from Recruit School. One thing for me, and I'm sure I probably speak on behalf of a lot of juniors, with us, we have a lot of, trying to word this correctly, a lot of opportunities for senior ranking and sailors and then officers to go overseas and do courses, go overseas and do deployments, go overseas and do exchanges. But for sailors and junior sailors, there's maybe 2 or 3 categories in the entire Navy that can actually go and do something. And then likewise in the officer world, you can have an entire career to go through your 40 years service as an officer, but as a sailor, we've all aspired to the one position of Warrant Officer Navy, right? That's it. That's the pinnacle of a sailor's career.
You say that's it?
So, like, it's very hard when you've got, I don't know how many exact sailors, but when you've got, say, 5,000 sailors buying for one position for the end of their career. Are your navies looking at sailor opportunities to go overseas, do exchanges, do courses with other navies and develop that rather than just giving it all to the higher end level of your Navy?
Yes. No.
Same.
So what you've done there is you've jumped into tomorrow's conversation. So Debs is over there again, uber excited. We are going to talk about that. The expertise you've got on the front row down there, we are going to talk about that because, as I alluded to earlier, the globe's been wrapped up with the pandemic, rightly so, for the last 2 years. And so we've now got a challenge for the senior enlisted in front of us here, the warrant officers and the chiefs, etc., to actually, I go back to my phrase earlier, think differently, do differently, and be differently in the months and years ahead. I stand down from this job in about 6 weeks, but there's nothing to say that next year we can't have leading hands, corporals, ABs, doing exchanges and all that, and I think that's a challenge that we will pick up tomorrow. So I'll let your Warrant Officer Navy back brief you next week on what we discuss over coffee and biscuits.
Yeah, so maybe I just add on, right? So early on, I say something like, whether it's a culture, even development, it's really people look after people, right? So I agree that we're going to talk about it tomorrow. I mean, there are a lot of exciting things coming up, right? And I mean, for us, we have been pushing this boundary. We understand the aspiration of the youngster, right? That's why I have Ryan with me, right, who delivered it. I mean, he don't have to wait until he becomes the Master Chief Navy of Singapore to come for such a forum, right? I also have Louis. So I think we are all collectively pushing this to make sure that our sailors also have similar opportunity.
I'm just going to fire one bit there. Your point about it's great that every single member of the organisation striving to be the top. Royal Navy's 29,500 people. 2% of people that join the Royal Navy make WO1. So we still need good leading hands, still need amazing POs, I still need fantastic chiefs. And every individual can still dream to where they get there. But I sometimes have conversations with people, you've got to be brutally honest. Not everybody will get to the position towards the top. It's fundamentally unachievable in some areas, but we still need good people in the organisation. I've got leading hands that have done 25, 30 years in the Navy that they still out on a day-by-day basis. So it's just sometimes it's just an open and honest conversation with people when they expect that promotion will come their way. It's not expect. You've got to be delivering on a day-by-day basis and all that. But yeah, the challenge is on us, the front row, tomorrow to make sure we can get stuff going in the years and months ahead.
Yeah, so team, we've got a working group all day tomorrow with the senior enlisted that have travelled from all over the world to share these ideas. They're kind enough to spend from 9 tomorrow to 15:30 tomorrow. I'm buying them lunch, so they have to stay. But no, that's absolutely the conversation we need to have. And you'll also have the Tier Charlie warrant officers that were on the panel, and you saw this morning, how their areas of responsibility, so they'll be in the room as well. And I will send a signal. Where's my EA? Hold me to account. We'll send a signal. Like CN does those. We'll send an update signal. My partner's having surgery next week, so I won't commit to next week, but it'll be the week after. So there'll be no tea and biscuits, but there'll be a signal.
Can always ask.
Thanks, Deb. Next question, please. Yep, right here in front, please.
Thank you, sir. My question's for One New Zealand. You mentioned earlier Sailor of the Year. Can you explain a little bit more about how you come about selecting that and why it's important to recognise New Zealand sailors in that way?
With great pleasure. So I'll start with the back end of the question. I think it's important. I think the acknowledgement piece for everything we do well is important anyway. The individuals that become sailors of the quarters on the respective platforms or in areas or perform well or do get put forward for Sailor of the Year. So it's a competitive process, but I think what it does for me anyway, for us, is it allows the cream to rise to the top. It highlights, it gives opportunity for those folks as well. It sets up a potential path for the future so that they can experience things such as this and understand, that's a potential thing that I can be a part of, and that's what I want to do. It gives the ability to have them understand the rooms that they go to. And there was experience of a Sailor of the Year a couple of years ago, and he understood the organisation, so when it came time for when the allowances weren't approved and the junior sailors were saying, Chief of Navy's not signing off, he goes, it's not that part of the organisation, it's this part. So there's a whole lot of clarity that comes from that exposure. And there's a whole bunch of messaging, not just down to the sailors and language that they can understand, but up also. And at last year's panel, the question, a common question was, yeah, but will you listen to me? And I think if you talk to our Sailor of the Year after this, I think she's on a panel right now, so she's probably shot out, but she and a lot of other juniors get a lot of airtime with myself, with senior leadership, with CN, and he listens. And at breakfast 2 days ago, there's something that I'm putting in place because she just mentioned something. So it's that empowerment piece, right? And it's creating the platform for success opportunities. I think it's a pretty cool thing. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, I've got a question for the Warrant Officer of the Navy of the Singapore Navy. Your rank structure, your warrior expert leader, how has that been, I suppose, adopted by your personnel? Myself being a submariner, and we have this discussion quite a bit. If you go to ask the question on Anzac Day with all of our people, and you say to a sailor, what do you do? Generally, a sailor will say, I'm a stoker, or I'm electrician, or I'm sonarman, whatever it might be. If you go to a submariner, and I'm not saying this because I am one, but you say to a submariner, what do you do? The first thing he does is say, I'm a submariner. Then he'll go on, oh, what do you do on a submarine? And they'll come into that other piece. How has the warrior expert leader been adopted by your Navy to have what you want them to be primarily? Are they warriors? Are they experts? Are they leaders?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, okay, so essentially the warrior expert leader framework is to empower people, right? To give them a sense of ownership, of accountability in certain area, right? So they just don't go about just doing their day-to-day chores and things like that. So I mean, your example about a submariner, whether it's a sonar, torpedo, right? They have an expertise in them, and what we want to do is really to make them be accountable, right? We make them own that piece of, or that part of the ship, right? And at any stage of their career, their tour, they are all warrior expert leader. I mean, we need the warrior in the torpedo guy, right? Yeah, I mean, if the thing doesn't work, we need him to have that resilience to get things going, right? Even a submariner, a junior submariner, he has people under him, right? We need him to be a good role model, right? We need him to train and to teach the junior submariner. So they play the role of warrior expert leader all the time. Right? No matter how junior or how senior they are.
Thank you, Richard. And the back there, please.
Hi team, leading Seaman Springer off HMS Canberra. I'm the PDI on board. I've just got a question for each of you, sir. The emphasis that you place on physical fitness in your individual navies. Thank you.
All of us. I'll start. A lot. It's only because we're playing you guys at some point in rugby, right? So we need to be ready for that. Yeah, so we have, I guess it's like I guess it's the culture, right? So there's areas, and I'm a clearance diver, so by trade, so. Well, I'm a
Have
sailor.
that person removed from the room, please.
I'm a sailor, right? And within that, I'm a clearance diver, just to speak to the point before. So it's part of our culture. But we have fitness standards and tests. We have the units themselves, right, have adventure training. There seems to be a higher drive than potentially some other navies or areas of the military I've worked in internationally with New Zealand, and I think in Australia as well. And I think it's just, for us, it's just how we were brought up. I know it's changing now. There's iPads and stuff and all those gaming things, but how we were brought up was outside, climbing hills, swimming, surfing, and all that thing. So all that experience and culture comes to play within the Defence Force, within the Navy and Defence Force. It's highly supported. If you represent teams or if you have sports things to do, it's supported, and I just feel that there's a big drive for it for us. So, cheers.
I can take that. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's an interesting question. So early on, Ryan said that he didn't join the army because he don't like mosquito, right? But for me, it's because I don't like to run, right? Yeah. So I joined the Navy. Then why we still talk about fitness in the Navy and then, but in fact, fitness on the ship, right, is nothing less than running in the jungle, right? I think the physical fitness, whether it's your body strength and things like that, when the ship start to roll in the high sea and things like that, that's where you realize that your fitness actually play an important part, right? And for me, okay, fitness is really closely knitted to resilience, the physical resilience which lead to mental resilience, right? So that's why we focus a lot on physical fitness. We do exercise on the ship, right? And when even in ashore, the guys go and run, and yep, that's what we do.
Can I jump in quickly to you just to add that we're getting we're older folks in the New Zealand Navy now, so our standards we've got a standard that goes over 60 and accepted as well. It's a lower beep test standard, but there's other pieces to it. So yeah, it's a.
When we talk about physical fitness, I think we cannot. It's really common in as a military personnel. So it is important for us, especially for a Navy, like Master Chief Darren said, during at sea. Then that we know how important our physical fitness is really important to us. So what I would like to share in the Royal Malaysian Navy, we have this physical test in every 6 months. I'm not sure about the others, but we do have this kind of fitness. What we do is if we found that everybody who did not pass the physical fitness, we are going to monitor them for about until they can pass the physical fitness. Because if they do not pass the physical fitness, there will be some kind of sort of career what is called restriction. Any promotion, any kind of promotion that will have a problem with. So by that, they will have their own effort to make sure that they are maintaining their fitness. I think, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I think just to clarify, we have to remember what we do for a living. We're all in the armed forces, and so at some stage, heaven forbid we might have to go to war or get involved in some humanitarian stuff. So we need to be fit to fight. But it also breaks down into resilience, mental well-being, to make sure that our people enjoy fitness and all that. From the Royal Navy point of view, yes, we do have fitness tests. Yes, they are being reviewed. We have our own private army. They're called the Royal Marines. They are clearly fit as butcher's dogs, is the phrase, because they need to do something slightly different to what the sailors need to do and all that. And so, and if I'm honest with you, they take all of them from the core RSM all the way down, take absolute pride in being fit, and they are quite exceptional in what they do. But as society and times move on and the technology we've got available to us, there's always new ways of doing stuff. And if you look at the fitness that some of this generation on the panel did when we joined the Navies back in the early 90s, it's a lot different now because we understand how we're all built. We're all slightly different, and we understand what's good and what works for us. And so it's an ever-evolving challenge, but we've got to be fit, and we've got to be fit to fight.
Perfect, thanks very much. We're going to jag it in there because of time. I will make some closing remarks, but the young individual from recruiting, is it? Can I get you up here for a sec, please? Oh, you're in shit, dude. Get up here.
Yeah. Shouldn't have asked that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wouldn't have had the guts to do what these young people are doing today. I wouldn't have spoke up until I was a warrant officer of the Navy. So thank you very much for your leadership. Thank you very much for your dedication. I see great things in your future, so I've just presented them with one of my Command Chief coins. Thank you. I'm the fattest guy up here. Sorry. Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm fat. And I say this jokingly. I used to do marathons. I used to do half marathons. I went to the Nationals for running. I went and did the Baton Memorial Death March in White Sands. I did Nijmegen. I don't treat myself well. Mental illness is not good to me. I take in too much booze, I take in too much food, and I know it's important. I don't look good in the uniform, and it's a shame, but it's absolutely important. The Navy of Canada does not put enough emphasis on it, but when you're going to sea, it's dangerous. You have to be in physical shape to be able to take care of yourself, so remember that. In closing, care, clarity, adaptability, respect, and enjoyment. Plagiarism is the greatest form of flattery, so feel free to use that. I'm retiring in 3 weeks, so I will expect royalties. As a notice here from Chris, would all warrant officer techos please meet in the corner for a photo after this, please? Thank you. Turn the ship around. Who here has read it? If you haven't, read it. Why do we have to have a leader-follower relationship? Why can't we have a leader-leader relationship? Yeah, you might be subordinate to me, but guess what? You're still a leader. And you know a whole bunch of stuff that I don't in your domain of excellence. Read the book. It's about empowerment. Oh, wait, no, it's not about empowerment, because who am I to empower you? You're already a leader in your own right, so grasp it and run with it. Feel free to stop me or any other of the crazy Canucks on a break. We've legalized cannabis, so we will be signing people up in the corner afterwards. We have dress rags that are changing. I don't want to get into it, but I could be up here stoned with purple hair and a whole bunch of earrings. It's going to affect each and every one of you when you see our new dress rags. It's not out yet, but feel free to take us and we will talk you through it. So when you see this guy with pink spiky hair, you won't be overly shocked. On behalf of my esteemed colleagues, it's been an absolute honor to be here with you. I thank you very much for having us. Deb and the team, absolutely wonderful. Always hit it out of the park. Again, an honor. I wish you nothing but greatness in your careers. Please take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. Hug each other when you can, and God bless each and every one of you.